thanks for hopping on today, Tony.
Sure.
I really appreciate the time, and I know you're a busy guy. You're doing all kinds of like cool things in this industry.
Thanks.
So thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
So just kind of like give us some context. Today, you are in a separate side of the industry than I think a lot of people who will listen to this, are still working in this industry in a technical space.
hmm
And I want to get to that, what you're doing today with business acquisition and how this industry is changing with more consolidation happening
hmm
in this space. But let's go back. I want to hear a little bit about how did all this begin. So take us back to when you were on the other side of the coin. How did you get
Yeah,
started in window cleaning, pressure washing in this industry? Kind of tell me where it all started.
sure. Well, where it started for me was growing up under my dad, and he was a wallpaper hanger and painter and kind of jack of all trades. And then in the 80s, maybe the mid 80s, they added on window washing and pressure washing, and that kind of grew. And so I worked under him in Missouri, lived on a little farm in Missouri, and worked under him doing the trades. And, starting at 8, 9 years old, being dragged along with him to do estimates on jobs, and then on wallpaper projects, being in these little farmhouses, and he'd give me a piece of wallpaper I could hang behind the toilet because that's the least seen one, so you got to hug the toilet and get the piece of wallpaper behind there. So just grew up working in a blue collar, lower middle class world. Uh, and then my brother and I, actually he came a year before me, but we moved to Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, and he and his wife started Krystal Klean in around 2000, 2001, and I moved down like 11 months later. And when I came down, they were mainly a painting, remodeling sort of company. And
So you and your brother, I mean, your brother kind of followed in your dad's footsteps a little bit then. So it made a
yeah,
big impact on you.
very much so, yeah. And Pop's still around and still a great dad, and he's trying to do a little wallpaper job with me right now,
Oh, okay.
just because he loves getting his hands in it, and I do too. I love swinging a hammer and doing the work, which is great. But yeah,
I grew up a lot the same way. My dad
cool.
was in construction, and so maybe not at 8 or 9, but definitely by like 11 or 12, I was spending my summers picking
Uh,
up trash, sweeping floors.
yeah,
Learned how to use a shovel. It was nothing. I didn't get to do anything glamorous or anything technical or put anything together, but it was always that grunt work. And
yeah,
I think it's interesting you followed in your dad's footsteps. I mean, I did too eventually, but I remember as a teenager, I hated it.
me
Like I
too.
said, I will never, ever
Me
work in
too.
any of this type of business. Did you like it as a kid, or did
Hated
you?
it.
You know?
I hated it. I
Okay.
wanted to be. I wanted to play soccer and swim like all the kids my age were doing in
Yeah.
the summers. And yeah, he would have us. We would be painting, like he'd get sorority houses or fraternity houses or dorm rooms for the University of Missouri in Columbia, and you'd have to paint 200, 300 rooms in this hot, gross dorm. You clean it out, all the college kids have left, and you see all their pictures on the walls. You're like, these guys had so much fun here, and here I am cleaning up their mess and painting the
Yeah.
walls. And yeah, same like you. As a teenager, I was like, I will never. When I grow up, I will never do this. I will never touch this. But grew up and ended up doing
So
exactly.
you said that you moved over into Florida,
Yeah.
and your brother was there, is in the business. So what changed? Why did you decide to go into business and start working with your brother?
Well, that's another long story, but sh- the shorter version of it is he eloped in the middle of the night with one of the elders of the church's daughters, and
Okay.
they were cut off from the church and the community. Goodness, I could go long with this story. We were part of a
Okay.
Christian community, so all my
Uh-huh.
dad is the business steward there, but all the people lived on the same piece of land. It was a little farm. They shared the same bank account. They owned the piece of land together. No radio, no TV, so it was kind of you could compare it to the Amish. It wasn't Amish. We weren't horse and buggy and that sort of thing, but it was a intentional Christian community. So,
Okay.
anyways, long story short, my brother left that with his wife in the middle of the night. We wake up and they're gone. And so they went, and this was what we knew. And so it's what they started. They started working in a field that they knew how to do it. So that was the split. And then a year later, I left because I don't know if you want all this story in here.
It's totally cool. I'm just I'm interested. You don't have to go into any more detail than you want to. It's cool.
Yeah. Well, I left a year later because another one of my brothers had left. They were cut off. We weren't supposed to talk to them. So I was like, I don't want to live in a place where I can't talk to my brothers. So I left and joined up with them in end of 01, beginning of 02.
Okay. So 20 years ago, you guys are starting off together, are working together in this business. You're doing something that you already know.
Right.
What kind of what happened next? How did it go? Was it did you
It's
guys
tough.
kind of hit it off, out of the park right away, or was it?
I mean, it's always hard because I left with $0 to my name, and they had been out for a year, so they had done, I think, $100,000 in business, just knocking on doors and asking people to paint their homes and pressure wash their homes and that sort of thing. So they had bought a little house, a 900 square foot home. I moved down here, slept on their living room floor. We started knocking on doors in the neighborhood, just asking businesses, homes, everyone, can we clean your windows? We'd have a squeegee and a bucket on us. We'd knock on doors. We had one cell phone we shared. We had their truck that we all shared. And then we'd get home after we knocked on doors all day and just sit there and wait for the cell phone to ring to see if we had work to do the next day. And then we'd do that work the next day and then knock on doors again and see if we could get work for the next day. So just slowly built, really. For a couple years we did that, and then we started running into, and we built it up to, I don't know, 2 years into it, we were probably doing $400,000 worth of revenue at that point between the three of us, with a couple helpers that we had. And we started running into competitors on job sites and said, hey, if you ever want to sell your route, we'd be interested in buying it. So we started buying small companies. The first company we bought was doing $13,000 a year worth of revenue.
Okay.
And it was kind of random. That one actually, the first one we bought, I was washing windows at this eye doctor's place, and it was like a $21 job. And someone drives up behind me and like, honk, honk. Hey man, what are you charging to do the job here? I was like, that's none of your business. Like,
yeah.
I don't share my prices. And he goes, well, you should be charging $50 to clean the windows here. I was like, well, I'm not. I'm charging $21. He goes, well, I charge $2 a pane. You should be charging $50. I was like, all right, thanks for the advice. And he goes, well, why I'm really talking to you is, do you want to buy my business? I was like, okay, what's your business? And he had the $13,000 a year worth of route. So I said, if your prices are $2 a window, it sounds profitable. Sure. He wanted a few $1,000s for it, so we paid him, and that was our first acquisition. And right away, it kind of built our route up a little bit. And we were like, that was an easy way to grow route really fast. Maybe there are more people that want to do that. So then we started looking at businesses and targeting them in our industry and trying to buy them. And we bought just under 20 businesses over the course of the 20 years we were together. Almost one a year after that we bought. And the largest one we bought was about a $300,000 a year revenue business. And so we built
so
it up.
in terms of like growth and marketing, did you guys just find that was the best strategy to get into the market and grow your business, was buying the other businesses?
I think it's one strategy.
Okay.
I don't know that it's the best strategy. We used it, and it is a good strategy. But also growing organically and targeting just customers you want, that's another good strategy. Because when you buy businesses, you get a lot of nonsense. Often you're buying a broken business or a burned out business owner, especially back then. It's changed a lot in the last 20 years in our world, because there are private equity groups now that are interested in service businesses, so it's better time to buy a business. It's a better time to sell a business right now than it was 20 years ago. Because 20 years ago, it was really by the seat of your pants. Someone's been washing windows for 20 years, 30 years. They're tired. Their business is starting to wane. They're not putting all the time into it. they're starting to fight with employees, they're burned out, and then they just go to another window cleaner or pressure washer and say, hey, buy my book of business, and they sold it for pennies on the dollar from what really the valuations are going for now. And so we were buying at that time, which I think was a little more cowboy time in the service acquisition.
So you guys kept growing. You were buying businesses. I assume you were growing other ways as well.
Yeah.
And then kind of what happened? Where did that get to?
So we took it up to, I think the largest year that Jeremy and I had together working was $7.7 million. So we grew it up to about that size gross revenue business, and we were bought out. That was the year we were bought out. We did that. It's the last year we worked together in the company growing it. And you're right, we did traditional marketing. Everything from newspaper, TV, radio. We always kept knocking on doors when it got slow. Send the crew leaders out. You have one job. Try to get a job around you. Don't just come back at 10 o'clock. Go get another house that's near you, and even if you give them a discount, do something with your time. So there was all different levels of marketing and growth, and the business acquisition was a part of that. But yeah, we sold in June of 2019. We sold the company. So it's been 2.5 years ago, and I left. Went and did kind of some bucket list things. Lived in an RV with my family for a while and saw the national parks and state parks. And
yeah, that's so cool.
It's awesome. Yeah, highly recommend it.
Yeah, that's so cool to get to. I mean, you're a pretty young guy, Tony. I mean, you can't be much more than 40 years old, right?
42. Well, thank you.
Yeah. So to have stopped with your family. At 40 years old and getting to go do something like that, that's
incredible.
What a blessing that is to have that time. So how did the sale of your business come about? Did you guys decide that you wanted out and then you went and found someone to acquire it, or were you guys just right place, right time, and somebody kind of came and knocked on your door?
More like that. We were right place, right time. And someone came to us. I think they approached us 3 or 4 years before they bought us, and they said, hey, we'd like to buy you. And we were like, no, things are going great. Like, we love what we're doing. We're making good profit. It's supplying our lifestyle. And then they came back a few years later and said, we're still interested. We'd like to sweeten the deal. And at that point in time, we were getting burned out. We were having some issues, and it just the deal they offered was worthwhile. It made more sense at that point, and so we said, okay, like, let's see what we can do. And yeah, they bought us out.
So you guys had not been building it with the plan to sell. You guys just built a solid business, a big small business, and then the opportunity came along. Is that kind of?
That's exactly right. Yep, that's right. Yeah, we really hadn't. Go ahead. Well, we hadn't planned on selling. It wasn't the intention. It did kind of chase us down, and at that point, the deal made sense to us with where each of us were in our life. And right now, like I said, the private equity groups, they are interested in service companies. So I'm sure a lot of people who have a business anywhere from $500,000 on up are probably getting calls, and people are asking to buy them, and that's because there is an appetite for it.
Right. So you guys, you went, you took some time off, you did some bucket list stuff, and then you kind of came back into the space in a different capacity. Tell me a little bit about kind of what happened after that.
Sure. So my wife's grandma actually started falling, and we thought we were going to go up north and live in North Carolina or Tennessee or somewhere where the summers weren't as brutal. But my wife's grandma started falling here in Jacksonville, so we decided to come back, and we had sold our home at that point, and we sold the company too. But we bought a little 5-acre farm north of Jacksonville, Florida, and you can probably hear hammering in the background. We're just wrapping up a little addition to move my wife's grandma in with us. And then, so I was here in town. The guys that bought us, they are still growing and interested in still buying companies. So I helped them broker a few, I don't know I guess brokered. I'm not an official broker, but I helped them broker a couple deals or put a couple deals together, and then came back to work for them, pretty much full time, just growing the company and looking at other acquisitions, other companies to purchase.
Right. So what is that like, working on the other side and kind of, I mean, I know you'd acquired some businesses while you were growing yours, but now kind of being in this space where you're working on private equity, I mean, tell me a little bit about it.
Sure. It's cool. I like it because I know what acquisitions look like for the last 20 to 30 years, and they didn't look as nice and appealing as they did. It's not anymore that a guy gets so burned out, he's frustrated, throws the squeegee to the ground, says, I can't do this, and walks away. It's not. Now there are options, and people can talk about it and plan that, at some point there's an exit strategy from this business. Either I'm going to have it fully managed out and give it to the employees and maintain some kind of ownership. I'm going to have a son or daughter that comes up and runs this company, or I'm going to sell it. And now that third leg of it, that I'm going to sell it, is a viable option, and they can get a decent price for it. So I like that part of it, that you're taking blue-collar workers that 10 years, 20 years ago didn't have this opportunity. Now they do have an opportunity to sell at a decent price. And what it looks like, usually when you do sell a company, they want the owner to stay in 1 year, 2 years, indefinitely. Really, they want the owner to stay on. So it's a way for the owner of a company to take money off the table. A lot of small business owners, 80, 90% of their net worth, I was in this place, 90% of your net worth is in this small company. So all your eggs are in one basket. This gives a way to take that money off the table, invest it in something else, whether it's real estate or the market or bars of gold under your mattress, whatever your thing is. But you can reinvest that money that's all been buried in your company for 20 years, still work for the company, still get a good paycheck, but diversify kind of your investment portfolio.
Right. And that's a way to mitigate risk.
Exactly.
You go from being in a situation where, like you said, maybe a partnership goes sideways, and then that entire, all, like you said, 80, 90% of your net worth is tied up. Now you're, now what? Or, something happens to you.
Yeah.
And we don't want to think about that, but you get past a certain point, and all of a sudden the risk is bigger to hang on to it versus looking at some kind of exit strategy. I mean, is that kind of the thought?
That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah, and you're right. Everyone has their own story and their own timeline that it works well for them. Some people, it's like when my kids are out of college and I make the last tuition payment, then I'm done with it. Some people, it is triggered by a divorce. Like, now we're separated and we both have all our equity and we can't stand each other, but we have all our equity built in this thing. We need to somehow exit it in a meaningful way that leaves us not both broke. Or, everyone has their story. It's not always negative. Sometimes it's just, I've had a great run, and now it's time to take the next step or go to the next chapter.
Absolutely. Get out when you're in your best position, or maybe you've built your business to a point where that proceed will retire you. It's versus continuing to work in it forever or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a lot of strategies. So, I had a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
Looking back on your time building your business, building a $7+ million service business, what was the biggest challenge you faced in growing a business to that size?
Oh, man. What I thought were the challenges then are different than what I think the challenges were now. Like, looking back, I realized that the biggest problem with any company is the leadership. And so that's looking in the mirror and saying the biggest problem with the company, after I sold it, the company grew significantly. I thought I was vital and so important and so necessary to every decision. And when I stepped away, a lot of the people we had in the company continued to make good choices, continued to grow the thing, and the thing's done great. So I don't know if that really answers your question. I think getting out of the way of of good people making good decisions, empowering them to do what they need to do, and not micromanaging. I think the whole need for small business owners to micromanage and control every decision is crippling towards growth.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
It wasn't exactly what I was asking, but
I know,
I love it. I love the answer.
Okay.
It was insightful, and from the perspective that we come from here, like, if I couldn't have really scripted a better answer. I think there's, I'm glad that you shared that.
Yeah.
So, on the other side of the coin,
Yeah.
looking back over that time, is there a moment that you can think of that was a really big breakthrough? Like an aha moment, like, as it was growing, you were kind of hitting a difficult spot, and once you figured this out, whatever this is, it really unlocked growth. It really unlocked success in your business. Is there anything that comes to mind?
There are a bunch of things that come to mind.
Okay.
One of the things that comes to mind in that is turning your negative, what looks like the worst customer or the worst situation, taking that and viewing it as an opportunity to make someone happy. Because I think a lot of times a small business owner, especially right now, everyone's so busy, they don't need the pain in the butt customer. But I'll share this story. We had what was a pain in the butt customer. They hired us to do this roof cleaning, and they wanted us to spray chemical on this rubber roof and TPO, whatever it was. Then that's what we spec. We spec'd out to soft wash it. Well, we soft washed it and the roof looked great, but then when you walked on it, the friction of your rubber sole cleaned it a little more. And we were like, we can go over this whole roof with a scrub brush and it will clean a little more, but this is the before and after. It looks great. The customer was like, no, you're gonna clean every square inch of this with the brush, and my boss wants to meet you. He thinks you're screwing us. So we were like, okay. So we go sit down at Cracker Barrel, I remember the day, and we met our boss's boss's boss. And they had this giant Caterpillar dealership in Florida. And he was like, the roof to be clean it's scrubbed. That's what, Jim is telling me, our boss. And we're like, yes, it does. It could be scrubbed and it would be cleaner. However, the soft washing's what we spec'd. It's what we did. The roof looks great, right? It looks 100 times better. He's like, we're not paying you any more money and we want you to scrub the whole thing. So we said, okay, we'll scrub the whole thing, every square inch. We went in. It would have been a $5,000 upsell. We did it for free. That customer turned into a $400,000 plus customer for years because we went into a bad situation. We said, no matter what, we're going to make you happy. We're going to do what's right. If you say this is what we owe you, we don't feel it's what we owe you, but we'll do it. We're gonna do what you're asking. And I think if you look at a negative situation and you just interpret it as a negative, and you don't do your best to make every single customer. This was a dinky little customer. It's a small customer. They weren't a $400,000 a year customer, but he became that. And I think not despising the day of small things, that whole idea of taking care of everybody and taking a situation that looks bad, make the best solution you can. If you do that, amazing things happen on the other side. And I think it's a worthwhile practice. So
that's good advice. I mean, that's an amazing story of how something that you could have been like, screw this. I don't need this. I don't want this. I did what we said we do,
Yeah.
And you shifted it, and that's amazing.
What's more with that person who was our boss's boss, he took us around. They had 30-some properties around Florida. We ended up waterproofing, coating their buildings, painting the inside of their shops. He became a mentor of mine. And that's my next piece of advice, is get a good business mentor. There are lots of people out there that want to mentor good businesses, and no one will take you as far as if you have an older man, an older woman, someone that has been in the business, and you find them and you say, will you please grow me? Will you please help me? There are people out there that want to do that for small business owners, and you've got to find that person and really plug in with them, because it's a tremendous value to have as a young business owner.
How did it change your business to bring a mentor on? I mean, what were the benefits of that?
I was just talking to him yesterday. He became a real close personal friend. We both shared a love of racquetball, and just good person. But one thing he did for me, I remember it. They'll give you the hard word that no one else will. So I was walking around with him on one of the jobs, and he was pointing out, "I want you guys to do this. I want you to do this." And I was walking around the building with him, and saying, okay, taking mental notes. And he turned around to me and goes, "Stop wasting your time. Stop wasting my time. If you're not going to walk around when we're looking at a job with a piece of paper and a pen in your hand and write down what I'm saying, then you're wasting both of our time. There's no way you're going to remember the 20 things we just talked about." And so having someone that will give you a hard word, and really they're trying to grow you, they're not being a jackass. They're saying, listen, if you're going to take this seriously, take this job seriously. And so after that one piece of advice is another great piece of advice for a small business owner. Walk around with a piece of paper and a pen. Even if you write nothing down, the person you're with, it does something psychologically for them. They think you're paying attention, listening, and actively listening. And it's an important psychological thing for a buyer when you're walking with them on a giant job. Like, they want to know that you're taking your job seriously. So I thought that was really good.
Yeah, that is. It's good advice. That's good advice. People, something about taking the time, like you said, to write something down, it totally changes the perception of how the value you're taking on it, the seriousness with which you take the situation and how you value the other person and their time.
Yes.
So I didn't think of that a lot, but that's really good advice. Anything else you want to share on this line of thought? I know I'm sure you have a million things.
As far as good ways to grow a business, I think in hindsight, you've got to go in the fishing holes where the fish are biting in your industry. Sometimes you'll want a certain customer group, and that might not be the best use of your time. Finding what the most profitable or best use of your time, best customer type, and then going to the place where those people are. For example, we wanted to get into hospitals. And we're going to BOMA, IFMA, all these different groups. Well, there is a specific networking group towards hospitals in Florida. It was the Florida Healthcare Engineering Association. When we got in this group, we all of a sudden realized 20 of the people we had been beating down doors and trying to get meetings with are sitting in this group. And they're all right there. And if you go to the place where they're at, you have the opportunity to meet them. So I think if you know a target or industry you want to get into, find out where the facility, find out who your customer is. Is your customer probably, if you're pressure washing, it's a building engineer, facility manager, it's a building owner, it's one of these type of people. So where are the organizations where those people hang out with? They have them, lots of them. Find out where those are and go to those spaces, and that's your best fishing hole. That's amazing advice. That's something that, as consultants over the years, that we try really hard to work with customers on learning. It amazes me how businesses don't really know who the best client is for them to go after. Right.
They don't really have a great feel on that. And if you don't know who and what, who really should my business be talking to, and what really do they want or need, or what their problem is, and where they are.
Yes.
You can throw away a lot of wasted resources trying to, catch fish, if you will.
That's exactly right. You might be, and I say this because you might be going and knocking on the door of the gatekeeper of that hospital group or Pepsi or whatever the customer is. You'll never get a hold of that person. Even if you get their email and phone number, like the likelihood of you getting their time of day, because of how many salespeople are trying to call on that same person, and you're one. But if you go to an organization or a group where those people are relaxed, where they're hanging out, where they go to get education, and you're helping them with that education side of it, now you've changed the whole dynamic, the whole script of the thing. So that was and we did it the wrong way. Many years.
Sure.
In hindsight, you could have done in 5 years what we did in 20 years, but you learn as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got two more questions for you.
Sure.
One, you guys made a successful exit out of your business, and to me that's kind of the ultimate goal for a small business owner.
Yeah.
But you kind of said it came about. It wasn't something that you were building for. If, in hindsight, you had spent the time building a business to sell it versus just building your business, what would you have done different in hindsight?
I think one thing, one thing I would change that most business owners are doing, fortunately, we did this right, and it wasn't because we had a lot of wisdom. We were talking to our pastor at the time, and we were doing, this was year one, back in 0102, we were doing homes, and so some people would pay us cash, some people would pay us checks, so the cash would go in one drawer, the check would go in the other, and I would say, have clean books. The cleaner your books are, the more marketable. Some people are running great businesses, but they're doing it all in cash, so there's nothing to sell. Like, if it's not on paper, it's not real, and so our pastor saw that we were doing that when we were doing, a few grand a month, and he said, stop doing this. If you grow your business this way, you'll have to look over your shoulders forever. You'll be worried about the IRS. You'll be worried about getting audited. Do it clean. There's lots of work to do. There's lots of money to be made if you do it fully clean, fully above board. And looking at companies, which I do all the time in P&Ls, I have the same advice to them. Like, don't think you're saving 25% taxes this year because you're not reporting it, or whatever your tax rate is, but you're losing it on the potential value of your business because all that's under the table. There's nothing to sell now. So running clean books and being above board, besides it being an honorable thing to do, it makes you more money in the long run if you think you're going to sell a company.
Okay. That's good advice. Good advice.
Yeah.
I suppose the same thing can apply to making lots of purchases just to save money on taxes and ending up never really showing the kind of profits that you need to for that to look right too, the same kind of thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yep. Having a real glimpse of things and learning basic accounting is helpful for, I think, every business owner too. Learn what your P&L means, know where your money's going, like understand the flow of it all. If you're kind of double talking or expensing things off on it, then you're never really seeing clear numbers, and then the clearer the numbers, the better decisions you can make when you're really looking at it. Where is the money going out the back door? Where am I losing here? It's hard to have that conversation when there's another conversation in the back of your mind that, well, I've got all this cash in my pocket also, and there's the double accounting sort of thing going on. It's just kind of screws up the conversation.
Right. Well, I love that. I mean, what you said, if you know your numbers, if you have the good information, you can make better decisions.
Yes, definitely.
And as a leader, making decisions is pretty vital, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So last question for you.
Uh-huh.
You're on the side of, you guys are acquiring businesses. I think it signifies. I think the service industry is changing because of the amount of consolidation going on.
Definitely.
What of all the changes that are happening, what's most exciting out there? When you look into the future, 2, 3, 4 years into the future, what's the most exciting thing about where you think the industry is going to head and what to expect?
I mean, that's a great question, and I'm not sure that I have the answer for it. I'm not the crystal ball guy. I've been more like by the seat of my pants guy.
Yeah.
Where is it going? I mean, we see this consolidation happen. You can see it in the waste management world where, there are only a half dozen major trash companies, and it happened way back with all the family video stores they used to have, and then it became Blockbuster in Hollywood. You just had 2 left. I don't anticipate that going on in the service sector because there's a cheap point of entry. You or I can always buy a $1,000 pressure washer or $100 worth of window washing tools and clean someone's windows and pressure wash their house and make a great living. So I don't see that, like some of the other industries, it's going to drive family business away. I think there's always that opportunity. But what is the opportunity? There's opportunity in this for people that want to be on a large team to grow with a team, because division of labor works well, right? When you have one person who's worried about the insurance, one person's worried about the HR, 3 people are worried about the marketing. Now everyone gets to exercise their strengths. A small business owner, you're trying to exercise all the strengths. You're trying to be everything. You're trying to be the accountant, the salesperson, the scheduler, dispatch, HR, deal with OSHA regulation. And that's what a small business owner, that's what you're doing. You're trying to keep up with all of this, maybe 2 or 3 of you, and it's heavy. Working with a team where you divide this up, everyone gets to exercise their strengths, and it gives lots of opportunity for growth. So I won't tell my brother's story, but he had to stay on for 2 years after we were bought. 2 years was up last June. He's still there because the opportunity to grow with a team, your paycheck can keep growing. You can do what you like to do or love to do in the business, and all of a sudden the things that you were getting burned out, that you hated about the business, someone else, that's their strength. You have a CFO, an accountant in the company, you have an attorney in the company, so some of the stress points that come on a small business owner go away in the context of a larger organization. And I think that's exciting for a lot of people that really have entrepreneurial success. And then if you get on a team that rewards your entrepreneurship, like the team I work with, and that's why my brother's still there, is the operators, the person running the business, gets a piece of the bottom line. And a lot of people do. Like, they believe in rewarding success and rewarding production. And so everyone kind of in the pipeline of that gets paid on the growth of it. And so in the case of my brother, the company's able to continue to grow, profitability is able to continue to grow, so his paycheck's able to continue to step up. He can exercise his strength. And so in the consolidation world, I'd say that's kind of the cool, exciting thing about it.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Well, Tony, I really appreciate all your time today. You shared some really valuable stuff. It was really good. Thank you.
Likewise. Yep. Always a pleasure. Hey, thanks for your time, Brad.